but we're not content with hearing about one victory. We'd like to hear from other campaigns. And so Vicky Penner, who's here from the, now let me get this right, Save Lewisham Hospital campaign. So she's come all the way from London and is the communications officer for the local campaign group, offered to come up in her own time and at her own expense because she wanted to see our teddy bears. And she's bought one. So can we, I'm being flippant now, I'm sorry. Can we give Vicky a big warm welcome and round of applause?
Firstly, I'd really like to say how honoured I am to be up here, because I've been watching what Huddersfield has been doing over the last 6 months, and I was blown away when I looked at all the stuff on your Facebook pages and everything. Because where we are in South East London, we pride ourselves in Lewisham on being super creative, and we think we're really hot. But we didn't come up with baby bibs. So, you know, on merchandise alone, I think Huddersfield might have beaten the pants off us, really. So, but yes, I am the communications person for the Save Lewisham Hospital campaign. And we had, some of you will know, some of you may not know, we had a big battle with Jeremy Hunt in 2013 because they wanted to close our A&E maternity units. I got involved because I'm a mum who has 3 kids. Shall I just keep talking anyway? I have my 3 kids at Lewisham, and when our campaign started, they were 1, 2, 4. So they were quite little, they were quite cute, and I used them as much as I could for publicity. But the thing that really, really gets me about all these situations, and I've been talking to campaigns in different parts of the country, is if these A&E units were sitting there dead empty, then fine, start closing them to save money. But they are absolutely rammed, and they are absolutely heaving, and the maternity units are absolutely heaving. So if we're going to apply common sense rather than bureaucratic nonsense, it's pretty stupid getting rid of them, and it is actually going to kill people. So from my personal experience, I found myself, when I heard the news about Lewisham, texting people at 3 in the morning, ranting on text. I was like, that's really not going to make much difference, so I better go to the first activist meeting. And we had a very leery meeting in Lewisham with 400 people. Lots of people shouting at each other as well, to be honest. And I came in and put my hand up and said, has anyone got a PR background? No. So I ended up doing the PR for the campaign, which was somewhat daunting. And I remember driving home that night going, how am I going to explain this one to my husband? But we did cause quite a lot of trouble, and there was quite a lot of coverage created from my kitchen table. And I think what's been special about our campaign, and it's the same up here from what I can see, is we brought together a core team of people that had very different but very complementary skills. So we had a lot of patients and clinicians. I should say our campaign is still highly active, because even though we have saved our A&E, we know they're going to come back for us at some point. So we're doing a lot of work now to support other campaigns and support junior doctors. We see this as a temporary battle win rather than a sort of long-term victory. But for those that aren't aware, we ended up taking the government to court in July 2013. And we beat them, which was by far... I have to say, we'd all been working, like you guys, many of us had been up till 2 in the morning for sort of 8 months flat by that point. We were like mad people by that point. But that day was right up there with my wedding day, because, you know, it really was worth fighting. And if that's the message that I can pass today, that decent things are worth fighting for, then I think we all know that, so it probably doesn't even need to be said. But if you don't fight, you lose it. So the communities that are most united and the most vocal have got the most hope of keeping their vital services. The maternity issue where we were was the one that grabbed me the most, actually, because when my son, who's now 6, was born, he became an emergency at 28 hours. His heartbeat plunged. And 1 minute I was sitting there thinking, great, I can have 2 ways of giving birth, so I'm going to be able to pontificate about which way is the best. And the next minute it was like, sign this consent form in the operating theatre. and he was delivered in, I think, 9 minutes flat. And he had the cord very tight around his neck, and it had to be cut off. And if Jeremy Hunt had had his way, mums like me would have been put in an ambulance, we'd have been transferred 40 minutes to 60 minutes, and my son would have been born either stillborn or with cerebral palsy, because the surgeon at the time said there was no way that was going to come out well with a natural birth. And I suppose the moment I realised that was the moment when I decided that he had to do something about this, and that patients have to do something about this as well, that we can't rely on just experienced activists who are brilliant as well, that the whole community has to get involved with this. So my job within Lewisham was very much to broaden it out as wide as we could get and cascade information out as far as we could go. I just wanted to say to you guys, you're running a fantastic campaign up here. Absolutely amazing. And the work you're doing is creative and positive. The press coverage is good. It's just brilliant. And I think this is a campaign to seriously watch. And we think in Lewisham you could win this campaign because we think your community is very strong. I normally do these things with a list of tips of things that you can do, and I don't really feel like I need to go through that list because I think a lot of you know all the good things to do. But I wanted to draw attention to a few things we did in Lewisham. We too took a legal route, like you guys are doing. We used a set of solicitors that were specialists in judicial review, like you guys are doing. We had some interesting events. I was in charge of something called the Buggy Army, and the Lewisham Buggy Army we built up through the NCT network. So I think I had 800 mums I could call on at any point in time in South East London. And really, we were wheeled out to wind up Jeremy Hunt was our job, really. So anytime we thought he needed a good kicking, we would turn up at the Department of Health with 200 mums. We turned up on Valentine's Day and we gave him a bunch of roses, and each rose was made of baby socks. And each baby sock represented a child that wouldn't be here if he got his way. So we did torment the man. We had 2 enormous demonstrations. I know you guys have had massive demonstrations up here. Our first one, we got 15,000 people out on the streets. 2 months later, it doubled to 30,000. So we had built huge momentum, really. A few fun ones. My favourites of our campaign. We had a problem with the council because they kept ripping down our posters, and we had a massive poster campaign. And I'm sure you guys have got some fantastic posters because I've seen everything around. The great thing about posters, they work on 2 ways. They help with the messaging. So I think we all know that the more messages people get, the more they're likely to respond. So they see it in the neighbour's window, they want to put one up. But the second thing we found was that it was totally empowering because people felt they were part of the campaign when they put a poster in their window. And anyway, the council gave us permission to put them on all the railings, and then the graffiti team hadn't spoken to the senior person and kept pulling them down. So I had to go for a meeting to sort of have it out with them, the head of environment, say, guys, this is not looking good from a PR perspective. By the time we'd finished, I'd had a tour of the whole depot. They'd given me a giant refuse truck. I had a billboard, Save Lewisham Hospital, filled with red helium balloons, and we were able to use that going around Lewisham and the whole borough, telling them that we'd won in High Court. And then in return for pulling our posters down, we got the graffiti team to put them up for us for 8 months. So I was like, result! And all sorts of things. The funniest thing I ever did was take some of our posters, see you in court, Mr. Hunt, any GP that was going to the Department of Health. They were given a back poster and some blue tack, and they were told to make sure a see you in court, Mr. Hunt poster was on the back of every single toilet door in the Department of Health. Every time Jeremy Hunt sat down on the loo, for about 2 months running, there was a message from Lewisham. I'm telling you these things because it sort of links to a very important point, which I think you guys have already grasped up here. But I think the more positive the tone, the smarter the tone, the more positive, and I use this word all the time, it has to be fun, even though it's serious. Because we all know it's life and death, everyone knows it's life and death, But in order to attract the general public, you have to be clever with your campaigning, and you have to make it entertaining and something that people are proud being part of. So there's a serious side to all these fun stunts that we did. So this positive tone, it involves patients, it involves clinicians, it involves faith groups, every single area of the community we engaged with, and I could send an email from my phone to the school database that I built up and reach 54,000 parents. So it was all very homemade, but it was quite powerful. I don't need to give you a list of tips because you guys know exactly what to do up here. I'm happy to be a source of extra ideas if you need them. What makes a campaign winnable? And we all know that local NHS campaigns are very, very, very difficult to win. I think it is all down to the people on the ground and how determined they are. And I have this thing called the 3 Ps. And it is people, and it is passion, and it is PR, because these people that are destroying our health service need shaming. And so basically, have I finished my 10 minutes? Nearly, I'm nearly. But in summary, we really admire what you're doing up here in Huddersfield. I've never visited Huddersfield before, but looking at all the work you've been doing, I feel like I know it already. And it is lovely to watch a community spring into action in the same way that we did 3 years ago in Lewisham. We want to offer you complete support from our campaign. We are keen to share ideas or share knowledge or bring support as much as you guys would like us to. If you ever fancy coming down to London in the Huddersfield FC bus, I will organise a jolly down Whitehall if anyone is keen to take part in that. And I think, just to finish up on a last story, I was like a mad woman over our campaign. I'm still a bit mad, but less mad. I get more sleep these days. But I would just fly post our stuff everywhere. And I remember some very smug mothers coming up to me and tapping me on the shoulder and going, "Vicky, it's really sweet what you're doing, but you know it's not going to work." And apathy is a problem. And do you know, I used to just go back to them. The only thing we know for certain is if we do nothing, we lose something really decent. And really, really decent things in this country are worth fighting for. And well done, Huddersfield. And we support you completely from Lewisham.